welcome to the Blindfold Chess Podcast. Considered to be an unofficial world champion of his time, Paul Morphy was one of America's greatest flash-in-the-pan chess players. Nicknamed the pride and sorrow of chess, Morphy learned chess by watching his father. By age 9, he was one of the best players in New Orleans, and by age 12, he beat Hungarian Master Johann Lowenthal, who was one of the top players of the 1850s in a 3-game match. Morphy graduated with his law degree at the age of 20, but he was too young to legally practice, so he took up chess in his free time. He played in the first American Chess Congress in New York City in 1857, which started a 2-year-long journey to launch him to the top of the world. Winning most of his games in New York City, the then chess hub of the United States, he went to Europe in 1858. Over the course of a year, he beat every strong European chess player with ease. There were attempts to coordinate a match with European champion Stoughton, but that never materialized. In 1859, Morphy returned to New Orleans, retiring from competitive chess at the age of 22, and tried to open a law firm. The law firm struggled during the American Civil War from 1861 to 1865, and then he tried to open the law firm again after the war, but most of his potential clients only wanted to discuss chess and not legal items. Coming from a wealthy family, Morphy transitioned out of working and opted for a life of idleness, never returning to chess despite pleas from the world's greatest players. One of Morphy's most famous games is the opera game. I highly recommend studying that game. However, today we'll be looking at games in which Morphy gave his opponent odds. That means at the start of the game, he played down material. The first game we are looking at, Morphy is playing rook odds. So in the starting position, Morphy does not have a rook on a1. Morphy versus No Name, 1855. Now if we're ready, let's begin.
Pawn to e4. Pawn to e5. 2. Knight f3. Knight c6. 3. Bishop c4. Bishop c5. 4. Pawn to b4. Bishop captures b4. 5. Pawn to c3. Bishop c5. 6. Pawn to d4. Pawn e captures d4. 7. Pawn c captures d4. Bishop b6. 8. Castle kingside. Pawn to d6. 9. Knight c3.
This is an interesting position. It's not so much a question, but more of an observation. So Morphy is down the rook on a1. He sacrificed the pawn on b4. And as a result, Black has 2 minor pieces developed, the bishop on b6, the knight on c6, while White has castled. Their queen has quite a few squares. Their dark-colored bishop has quite a few squares. The other 3 minor pieces are developed, and he has complete control over the center.
Knight a5. Bishop d3. Bishop g4. 11. Bishop e3. Queen f6. 12. Knight d5. Queen d8.
On the black side, this appears to be a waste of tempo. Black played queen d8 to f6, the queen was attacked, and then the queen went right back to d8. What would have happened if instead of queen f6 to d8, black would have played bishop takes f3? White would have captured the queen on f6 with check. So while both queens are hanging, white can capture black's with check, which would lead to a substantial material advantage for Morphy.
Pawn to h3. Bishop captures f3. 14. Queen captures f3. Knight f6. 15. Bishop g5. Bishop captures d4. 16. Pawn to e5. Bishop captures e5.
'Starting the game down a rook, Morphy has now sacrificed 3 different pawns, most recently the pawn on d4 and the pawn on e5. However, there is a point to these sacrifices. Can you see what Morphy is cooking up?
Rook e1. Castle kingside. 18. Rook captures e5.
If you would have guessed Morphy would sacrifice more material, you would be correct. In this case, rook captures e5 is removing the defender of the f6 knight. Now white has 3 different pieces attacking f6, and black has 2 defending it. One of them is covering the king, and the other one is the queen. Neither are healthy options for black.
Pawn d captures e5. 19. Knight captures f6 check. Pawn g captures f6. 20. Bishop captures f6. Black resigns.
The only move for black here is queen captures f6. So while material may still roughly be equal, Morphy has more than enough demonstrated that he can win down a rook to start the game. That is the kind of thing that I like about not only Morphy's style of play, but also the Romantic era of chess in general. There are lots of flashy combinations, lots of material sacrifices, and it makes for a lot of very dynamic, firework-themed, exciting chess. So that is all that we have for this week. Tune in next time, where we will continue to work on our blindfold skills and look at the games of the Masters.